Hello YouTube video watchers, welcome to our YouTube channel. This YouTube video is brought to you by Kangarootime. So at Kangarootime we do three very specific things. We automate the business, so all your payments, all your billing, clocking in, clocking out, keeping track of time with your teachers, everything to do with the business we automate with our childcare management system. We also have a classroom automation platform which gives your teachers nudges and prompts at point of care. So feedings, diaper changes, and the ability to communicate with your parents. We also have a world-class parent engagement platform that hardwires your parents and families into the early education experience. So please check us out and enjoy the video. Thanks everybody.
Go for it.
Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We start all of our webinars. If you can type into the chat where you're coming from. We know we have people from all across the country joining us for these webinars.
Any Hawaiians? What time is it in Hawaii? It's pretty darn early.
Got two from New York. Buffalo, New York.
Go figure. Go figure.
Niagara Falls.
I got a great story about Buffalo that I'm going to start out with.
Really? Okay, so while everyone logs in and joins us, I'll get started with just some housekeeping. I am Genevieve. I oversee all of our marketing here at Kangarootime, and I'm joined by Scott Wayman. He is our CEO and founder. And we also have our product manager, David Gonzalez, on the line with us as well today. So as you're joining, I'll tell you a little bit about Kangarootime, which some of you might know. We create software for childcare centers and preschools. So everything that you need to be able to run and optimize your business, from parent engagement, billing and invoicing, staff management, we do it all. So you'll be seeing more about that today, and Scott's going to be talking about how you can optimize your center using software in general, and we'll dive into some of the tools that Kangarootime can help you. So with our webinar series, we started this just about, what are we on, day 94 of quarantine, Scott?
That's right, according to the most accurate counts I can account for. But yeah, 94 days. We're coming up on 100 days. Is that not crazy?
Yeah. So we started our initiative just about 94 days ago, and we got together and wanted to create a community for the early education industry, just provide a forum and a space, resources, content for all of the challenges, knowing that, COVID-19 was going to pose so many problems for so many people across the country. And we wanted to make sure that, we're part of the solution, and we're trying to help as many centers as we possibly can. So one thing we did was create our Facebook group, which is KT Childcare Connect, which if you're looking at my screen, I'll flick over to it. So this is a Facebook group. It's open to everybody in the childcare industry. We're talking about the most important issues that you're facing today. So outside of COVID-19, we're talking to your children about racism, and that's an important topic right now. So we're talking about that. We're talking about COVID-19, reopening your center, anything that's of the moment, we're talking about here. So I encourage you all to join. I'll share the link once the presentation gets started, because I know a lot of people always like to join. And then we also have our webinar. So I'll click over to our YouTube page, and I encourage you all to subscribe here. We post all of our webinars once they are complete up here. If you subscribe, you'll automatically get a notification once we have a new webinar. And then we also have a lot of other videos and content on there. I encourage you all to subscribe. And then within the last month, we recently released our Kangarootime blog. So this is specifically for childcare centers. We're creating content about, financial planning, parent communication, anything that the childcare center touches, we're talking about in here. So I encourage you all to go in and subscribe to our blog, and we'll get posts. We're usually doing that on anywhere from once or twice a week, sometimes more. In addition, we also include all of our webinars once they're posted on here. So just a great resource for all childcare centers. So a little housekeeping just about the webinar. We are offering certificates of attendance. So we'll send you those the day after the webinar. So we'll send those out tomorrow. It'll be in an email in the follow-up, so you'll get a recording, and there will also be the certificate of attendance. If you have any questions for Scott or for David throughout the presentation, type them into the Q&A tool. We have the chat tool, so you can connect and say whatever you want in there and with other people. But if you have a question specifically, put that into the Q&A tool. It just helps us triage a little bit better. Your camera and microphone are off, so we can't hear you. So if you need to say something, just type it into the chat or use the Q&A tool if it's a question. And then we'll, like I said before, we'll have the recording. The recording will be sent tomorrow to everyone. Or if you go to the YouTube page and subscribe, you'll see as soon as I upload it onto our page. So with no further ado, I will intro Scott Wayman, our CEO and founder of Kangarootime. So Scott founded Kangarootime in 2015 after spending more than a decade working with healthcare systems across the US, and he successfully founded a healthcare informatics business, MedStreaming. Scott was inspired to found Kangarootime when he discovered that many of the groundbreaking technologies being used in healthcare systems and physicians' offices could greatly benefit childcare owners and leaders in the early education industry. He designed Kangarootime to bring the same efficiencies to childcare and to give childcare professionals the tools to scale their classrooms, automate their businesses, and better communicate with the families they serve. Scott's won awards for Kangarootime at Tech Week LA as a finalist runner-up. He's a Vader Splash LA champion and is a member of the Year 4 cohort winners of 43 North. He's formerly a resident of Long Beach, California, but he's currently there right now under quarantine. But he did relocate himself to Buffalo, New York in 2018 after winning the 43 North competition. Kangarootime is based in Buffalo, New York. So for today's discussion, Scott's going to discuss how software can help optimize and improve your childcare center. And he'll give insight into the time and resources that can be saved by automating various business processes while improving staff and parent engagement. So now I'm going to pass it over to our fearless leader, Scott Wayman.
Thanks, Genevieve. Isn't that tougher than it looks? Every time I introduce somebody, I'm like going through, I prep and I look at their bio, and then there are like 5 or 6 sentences that really kind of like stoke the dyslexia for me. So
I know, and Scott, I practiced. I knew your bio, and I'm still finding myself reading. So
it's a rough one. Hey, thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen and I'll get started with a little bit of a story. So as Genevieve said, I founded the company here in Long Beach, California, where my wife lives, where my family is, where I have a lot of roots. We were like your typical startup, and not knowing what we didn't know when we started writing the software in 2015. We went through this long journey, and the long journey was like the Oregon Trail. It was full of so many pitfalls. And by the way, Christina Meyer, one of our first customers, she just jumped on to say hello. Love you, miss you. And by the way, thank you for being so crazy in the beginning. You're one of the reasons that we're still here. A lot of the work we did was in Colorado with Christina, and she not only bought our software and paid for it, but she should have been on payroll. She spent a lot of time working with us. But along that journey, and I'll get back to some of our findings, along that journey, we ran out of capital. My wife and I were funding the company. This is crazy. I'm pretty wide open about it. We put nearly $1 million into the business, and every month there was like a $60,000 or $70,000 or $80,000 in payroll coming due, and I'm going out talking to investors, and I wasn't getting the excitement that a founder typically gets with a new startup. I was getting like, "Are you crazy, man? Like, what is wrong? What is wrong with you? You keep putting money into this thing." And I kept saying, once you look the customers in the eyes, once you look our owners and directors in the eyes, and you get context around what they need, you'll get it, you'll understand. So at the end of 2017 or mid 2017, we were out of cash. We were kind of like what they call the walking dead when it comes to a company. Many of you, one of the reasons we started KT Childcare Connect and started connecting a lot of you to resources to get the PPP loans is because I got hit with this flashback empathy, remembering those times where right in this room over here, I would lay in bed and not know how we were going to pay our employees the next week, or how things were going to pan out. So throughout that struggle, that drove us to do some interesting things. The one interesting signature moment at Kangarootime was we entered into a contest, and it's called 43 North. I encourage all of you to watch our 43 North video. You'll see me up there. There's kind of some funny moments. So 43 North is an investment group, and they have this interesting concept of running the world's largest startup competition. So it starts with over 500 companies, and they kind of recruit you, and then you pitch, and then it goes down to a semifinal round, and you pitch on Zoom like this. And then the finale is they bring you to Buffalo, and it's like college recruiting, and you pitch against 20 different companies, and only the top 8 get funded. So, you know, everybody's there for the weekend, and you're going through all these rounds. And just with my story, on my finals pitch, that night, I'm on the phone coordinating and working with our team that was in Chicago at Chris Murray's show. And I walk onto the stage, all kinds of stuff going on, and I hit the first slide, and I realize it's the wrong slide deck. So I'm like so rehearsed and ready to just knock this thing out of the park. And I look over to the production assistant, and I say, hey, this is the wrong pitch deck. And the judges are yelling at me, just go. So I presented my deck. I felt like I had totally shit the bed. I felt like I had done a terrible job, but the miracle is the judges really liked our business. They had a passion for what we were doing or trying to do for early education. So it all worked out. So fast forward, that was the end of 2017. We moved the company to Buffalo for our $500,000 investment, kept the company alive. We had 6 employees at the time, 6 or 8. Now we have a lot of employees in our Buffalo office, and we're growing worldwide. In the last couple of quarters, we've doubled our install base quarter over quarter. Even with the COVID-19 crisis, we've been so blessed and fortunate. I call it an embarrassment of riches to have customers like many of you that are on the phone or on the webinar that have been super supportive. So thank you. That's our story. But today I wanted to share with you. I'm going to share my Genevieve. Can you see that? Did I switch over to?
Yep, I can see your screen.
Yeah, so today I wanted to share with you our voyage and some insights that I gained. And my goal here is not to do a sales pitch. I think, you know, as we have gone through this process and figured out our strategy with helping customers, the most beneficial and efficient way to help early educators is to be there for them and to try to provide the best education possible. What we get from that is we get a lot of feedback and a lot of kind of like this motivational inertia from all of you to build products that are very beautiful. So when I founded the company, I kind of had an interesting background. I had already done a startup. I had entered into this world that was like this centrifuge of intense experience. So building Kangarootime, I feel like I had come into the arena on steroids, right? So I had such a sharpening and such like a very well-oriented learning lesson in building products for customers that were in super complicated and multifaceted and dynamic domains. let's just take like the typical childcare center. You live in multiple ecosystems. So you have assistant directors and directors that live in the administrative suites. You have teachers that live in their classrooms. You have owners that maybe live outside of the business and they're working on the business. You have folks that are working on learning delivery. If you look at the multifaceted nature of a child care center or an early education delivery model, it's very complex and more dynamic than people give credit for. So when somebody's driving by your center with the cute branding, with the ultimately the quintessential cute name that you built your brand around, I know for a fact that people don't see the sophistication that's there, that the underlying business and the lifeblood of the business and what it entails. Being in healthcare, and I've had a number of people say, you talk about your healthcare background too much, but it was just kind of like this great collegiate education and academic experience. And let me tell you why. So when I started at MedStreaming in 2007, just imagine only 9.4% of the entire marketplace having a system that was digitized or a software platform that helped advance their business. And within one decade, half a decade actually, every single hospital in the country by 2015 had moved on to an electronic health record or some sort of software as a service technology. And seeing the migrations, seeing the patterns, seeing the vendors that they used, it was such a great learning experience and such a great orientation to watch and be involved in a digital revolution like that had occurred. So for many of you, I'll give you some insight. It didn't work. In 2009, there was a stimulus act passed by the Bush administration, and then the Obama administration picked it up and deployed it. Billions of dollars that were earmarked for health systems and physicians to buy basically the Kangarootime or a system like Kangarootime in childcare for healthcare. So there were vendors. Our company was called MedStreaming. There was Cerner. There was Epic. And not only were they encouraged to digitize their businesses, but they were given money by the government. And in fact, I tell this story all the time. I would walk into a physician office and start counting the names on the wall. They have 18 providers here. Your reimbursement from the government, if we install by October 1st of this year, I can get you a check for $3 million. They were getting something like between $45,000 and $65,000 per physician just to sign paper and buy an electronic medical record. Could you guys imagine how motivated you would be to go buy Kangarootime or one of our competitors if the government, after this most recent crash, had said, hey, we'll give you $45,000 for every teacher you have to have a great classroom automation, a great childcare management system, a great top of the funnel tool like Childcare CRM. We're going to give you money, go buy it. And can you imagine how frothy and how kind of chaotic the market became, and how entrepreneurs like me that were there that were like, oh my God, we can't miss the boat. In fact, so much so that is what drove the adoption, and that did not drive success. So everybody bought a platform, but because of the lack of maturity when it came to interoperability and how these systems were deployed and how each of the stakeholders had different motivations. And I'll give you an example, and this will resonate with some of you guys. An administrator at a hospital, they were inherently motivated to install something that kept track of all the data, because they could make better decisions, right? But a nurse, like my wife, at the point of care, hated this concept, because they were fast on a little piece of paper. They would throw a chart in the door. You know, each door has these little plastic things. They throw the chart up there. They run out. They always had a running record or running ledger of what was going on with the patient. It was super fast, but the nurses and the physicians at point of care, once health systems start to digitize, they start to rebel. They hated it. And I'll get into that and how that's an important component of learning, and something that we brought to Kangarootime. As we write every line of code for our customers, we really lean into and consider what we call user-centric design. So Christina's on the phone or on the webinar. I won't pick on her, but there's so many times that we were building software and we were going to 10, 20, 30 people and throwing things in front of them and saying, hey, before we put this out into the world, let's make sure that the usability is there, that it's solid, that it's viable, that this doesn't bastardize the experience that your teachers have with children at point of care, that this doesn't kill the beautiful experience that your parents can have, in hardwiring them into the experience. So being super cognizant of all these was huge. The other piece was being very, very intentional, and we'll get to this as far as acquiring a childcare management system, being super intentional about creating what we call a strong information exchange. So if you're collecting data, I'll pick on a number of you. I know a number of you are giving out enrollment forms. You're waiting for parents to fill them out by hand and bring them back. Unless you're scanning every one of those, which I know you guys aren't, you're not digitizing anything, and you're not making that information any more useful or giving it any more meaningful life or meaningful use than you would have in comparison to just taking those and stuffing them into a paper file. Creating strong information exchanges is a tenet and something that you all need to prioritize. And we'll I'll go over that. The next thing was, there's an approach in software when you rebuild something or when you start to build something, you have to take a very scientific, a very surgical approach of implementing it. So for many of you who have the early versions of childcare management software, that software was invented pre-internet. So the strategy around being user-centric, having like a very viable user experience and data, very beautiful concept. It's not very well designed around your business, right? It's kind of shoehorned into your business in spite of your practices, your workflows. The way that we see a software implementation is very similar. So this is a strangler fig tree. This tree is like a complex organism. Has a multivariant bunch of cycles, and what it does is it encompasses its way, or it surrounds itself around its host, and then it eventually eats the host and becomes this super complex, beautiful organism. This is how we see our software, and how scientific and how thoughtful the software has to be with implementation and taking on user user profiles and use cases and user-centric design and making it a beautiful experience. And then over the last, I had mentioned before, many of you are on software that was designed and built prior to the real like high fidelity use of the internet. So this is a word that we use internally. It's SaaS, software as a service, and software as a service is more than just kind of the type of software. Software as a service has an entire design around it, an entire discipline. It also empowers how you build your organization. Many of you who are our customers, you know that we have our customer success team available within 1 or 2 minutes. The reason that we're able to do this is because we can scale what we do, because we have an infrastructure that understands and has models built around it that understands your behaviors. So we know when somebody enters into a part of the software, and we're monitoring the adoption and where somebody might get stuck. And I think this is kind of one of those unknown quantities. When you're looking for software, let's say 10 years ago, you had a big decision to make. You're either going to get the on-premise version where you download a software and then you buy it one time. SaaS software is different. This software was probably a little bit cheaper to acquire, so you're not paying a fee up front, but you pay forever. And the sentiment, 10, 12 years ago, when we started building software like this, to the consumer was, or to you guys, to an owner was, hey, I'd rather go get a Procare disc, implement it, and then never pay again. But if you really look at the DNA of a software as a service company versus a non-software as a service company, there are huge differences. And by the way, if in our marketplace, there are some companies that have converted from one type of company to another. It's very hard to do. And if the DNA, if you're seeing an issue with your software and it's an older type of software, if the DNA isn't from kind of a post-internet creation, the organizational structure is not built around a highly scalable software as a service organization. So building or acquiring a platform that is software as a service is really a big decision. So as we've all grown into this world of location enabled mobile devices like this, the realization, one of the best investors in the world, venture capital firm called Andreessen Horowitz. By the way, if any of you are in a desert of podcast content right now, please go and go and subscribe to the A16Z podcast. That's Andreessen Horowitz's podcast. They always have brilliant content. Mark Andreessen here, one of their co-founders, is a thought leader in the world of software. And his quote in 2011, I believe it was, "Software is eating the world." And the premise was that over the last 6 decades, after kind of the computer revolution and 4 decades after the invention of the microprocessor and it getting smaller and smaller, and then 2 decades into the rise of modern internet. So we are only 20-something years into the rise of the modern internet. All this technology is changing. And I believe in what I've seen, our experience in the world of early educators, you guys have been kind of like pinned in to a really interesting archetype or a segment of the world that was seen as really simple and given super simple tools. and never having access or been cohorted with a group that had a revolutionary company or two or three. There's not always just one in every vertical. Come along and say, we're going to build the software that's going to revolutionize your business. And there are a few reasons for that. So first of all, like I had mentioned before, the childcare business was, if you look at by the way, the claim is the first childcare business, or the first, they call it daycare. And I know that's kind of a bad vernacular. It was actually founded in Buffalo, New York, interestingly enough. And early in the 1900s. And then commercial childcare or commercial early education. If you look at the growth from 1970 on, I mean, the growth from decade to decade has been incredible. And the American acceptance of early learning and early, first five has been incredible. And an interesting thing there. So as the early education market and boilerplate and its stakeholdership of GDP has evolved, we've been smack dab in kind of like these middle areas of technology. Steve Jobs in 2011, he stood on stage and he introduced the iPad, and he held it up and he said, "We are in the post-PC era." And I remember thinking while I was at MedStreaming, these hospitals, they missed the PC era. The businesses, the small and medium businesses out there that run their businesses on even ancient old software. Because of timing, these organizations never did. Early education's kind of been in the same place, but that is great news. The bad news is many of you have acquired good enough software, right? So there's a complacency, software that's not challenging the business or the status quo or advancing. And that's not terrible news, because the software obviously got you from point A to today. But the good news is acquiring a new user-centric design platform with a different strategic kind of play that helps the business is readily available. So you can acquire it. You've probably gotten useful life from your prior software, and instead of looking at this, and I didn't intentionally make this blurry, but I'm sure many of you have stared at this screen for a long time. To moving to something that's beautiful and well designed. Again, back to the DNA of software design and companies that have prioritized software as a service. So, a company like Kangarootime will have a team of designers that will scrutinize every single pixel, and you'll start to see small little changes throughout the user experience. Christina, I know you for sure, being one of our first customers, you saw the evolution, and you were involved in some of the user testing and some of the usability. But our strategy quickly became that there were a couple of components that made implementation and the focus of building the software and presenting it to our customers the number one things, right? So first of all, by acquiring software, we knew that there had to be a key benefit for our centers enhancing the relationships with their families. So first and foremost, if you're going to implement software and it's going to set you back ages, it's going to take more time. You're going to be in the director's office with your head in a computer, screwing around with billing boxes. Why do it, right? Like, if, just like the nurses of the early 2000s, if they're giving better patient care and doing their jobs better, why are you heaping a terribly designed tool on them to make their days longer? It just makes no sense. So if you're going to spend the money, make sure that there's automation at the forefront. If you can write a benefit statement after a software demo to say something like, if we implement something like Kangarootime or one of their competitors, and our billing time goes down from 2 hours a week down to 0, that's a great start. And then you can start to ROI, return on investment, each and every component and usage of the software. So that was the first thing, was as you look at software, you as the customer, what is the net benefit, and can you return on investment that out? So if you're paying us a couple $100 a month for software, are you carving out $500 in labor or were you able to cut out having to pay, a bookkeeper, though that's not the intention of the software. Bookkeepers are still very viable. Were you able to acquire the software and add a classroom automation platform for your teachers to make them more efficient doing their daily reports? Were you able to give the parents a better experience? Were you able to, recently we've had many customers acquire our software based on the premise of the contactless check-in. So, our platform doesn't force folks to go to a kiosk or touch a BioID fingerprint reader. It uses a different technology to confirm that you're there. And then it also ties into letting the teacher know that the student is inbound so that they can get ready and clean and sanitize. It also lets them know when the parent's picking them up. So benefits like that, can you return on investment those out? Because if you can't, there's no use in stepping up and making the switch. The second thing, and I've got a couple of examples here, we felt like that interfaces were, if you're using 3, 4, 5, 6 different systems, you're probably doing a lot of manual labor that you're not aware of. There's always, I'll give you an example. So our integration with our wonderful partners, Childcare CRM, and by the way, if you didn't know, Childcare CRM has a great special ending in the month of July or June. So please let us know if you're interested in Childcare CRM. They are such a wonderful partner. And right now, I think they are more important than ever. And what Childcare CRM does for our customers is they collect all that top of the funnel information. So all your sales enablement, all your tours, they create kind of like all your mailing and nurture automation. Well, we made a decision a couple of years back in 2018 that it was super important for our customers to have a fluid user experience between the two systems. And if a customer was going, or if an owner or director had to go in and populate things into Childcare CRM and then go back and duplicate that into Kangarootime, that was too much. We wanted there to be a high level of integration. So think about all the dependencies. And at the end of this, I'm going to show you guys a few sneak peeks. We have some new products that are coming out that we think really tie into this strategy. We also have a direct integration with Quickbooks that just launched. Our Key CE door lock, let me show you. Again, back to contactless. We've got, you can actually, if a customer has our Kangarootime app, their phone, if you touch it up to our door lock platform, it will open the door, and you can set bumpers and parameters on those. Again, this goes back to really being thoughtful about interfacing with platforms, or having really tight integrations and a single user experience. So understanding the entire continuum of what the software does in your center, and then understanding all the endpoints and things like what your door lock system does, what the situation today is with health checks and having to have contact-free check-ins, sign-in, sign-outs from parents. Start to consider all those things and really dig in when you're looking at the software. And again, interfaces are great. We've even heard, some of our competitors, they'll go out and buy another competitor, or they'll go out and buy another company. And we've even heard that the way that those systems talk to each other, even though they've been part of the same company for years and years, is pretty bastardized. It's pretty bad. So really push, really push when you're looking at the software to see how seamless those experiences are. So yeah, there's an actual video here, but because of time, bottom line, we can show you, or I can send out screenshots showing the seamlessness. And by the way, this is Childcare CRM's old UI. They clean it up, but you can see here, anything that's in CRM seamlessly goes over into Kangarootime and vice versa. So if you change the child's address, if you change, their custody, guardian, anything, their phone number, it'll all go back into CRM and vice versa. Oh man, things have changed a lot since we've done these videos. Again, you'll see kind of the dynamic nature of what we do as you see the evolution of the software. Another area where we really dug in, we've had so many of our customers that use Quickbooks. Quickbooks, our system is great with all the billing, all the reconciliation, all the collections, getting money to the bank as quickly as possible. But many of you also use QuickBooks. We have a very succinct integration with QuickBooks, and it can do everything from, so if you're in QuickBooks and you have the integrated version of Kangarootime in QuickBooks, it'll send over all the journal entry data. It'll send over a chart of accounts. So you can honestly click into QuickBooks, and Kangarootime is feeding and educating quickly the QuickBooks.
In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how FlexBooks syncs all of your money.
Okay, we're not going to show that. So finally, so all this integration is great from a workflow experience, and I'll close this down here in about 5 minutes, and we'll get to questions. Where this gets really powerful is when you're able to kind of create an acquisition engine that's pulling lots of data, and then giving our customers thoughtful dashboards and thoughtful, actionable intelligence. So, the integration with Childcare CRM is great, but what's really awesome is if we understand and we can post, all the tour information, everything into our dashboards, and then relate that to revenue and create more actionable intelligence. And, the early conversations we're having with IC360, so all your teacher and staffing learning, your LIS functionality, being able to manage that and have one single system understand that. And then obviously the QuickBooks integration is not necessary, but it is powerful. And where we found it powerful is for those of you that have multiple centers and your P&L and all your back-end business data is in one system. So having the extra layer of integration is huge. And guys, in the end, the one piece, I think each of you, every time I joined a demo, and for our first few hundred customers, I did every single one of your demos. So many of you have already heard this story. But the important thing that we learned early in the company was that the reporting tools were not dynamic enough. So that's an area where we've focused over the last 6 months and over the next year and a half, is to really lean into data to analytics and give you real-time dashboards. And again, this story is evolving, and it's one that's been kind of hard to grow and mature, a lot of work. And I think you'll see the benefit if you have tight integrations with our partners, if you understand what's going on throughout a product suite like ours that covers all your revenue cycle activities, it covers your human resources information system needs, covers everything up to your scheduling for your staff. It understands what children's schedules are. It understands what's going on with teachers inside the classroom. It understands what's going on with parents. Having a viable, smart data and analytics approach and a focus on machine learning and really understanding the data becomes super powerful. So in the end, I think I'm at the end of my time, and I'll open it to questions, and maybe we'll do a little show and tell, depending on the questions. In the end, please, I want each of you to start considering how mindful you are about the types of tools that you bring into your centers. And on the surface, it might be about expediting billing. It might be about making the revenue cycle more legitimate. It might be about making the parent experience better, right? And engaging families. It might be about making your teachers as effective as they can be at point of care. But in the end, I think the long tail strategy for each of you owners and each of you directors and each of you that are nurturing careers is to harness the power of the data that you have and start to make it actionable and really move things forward, really make things better, whether or not that's your learning delivery strategy and making learning better, understanding what your teachers are doing at the point of care, or just understanding how you're going to pay your employees and make the business better. So with that said, I am through the first portion of this. Genevieve, Dave, do we have any questions?
We do. So we had a couple questions throughout just about the software that I was able to answer. So we have a great question from Andy Gorman. He's asking how Kangarootime can improve the business workflows, and does it provide efficiency to justify the expense? And what are the best practices to onboard in childcare settings in reference to teacher and parent usage and integrations?
Yeah, so let's start out with kind of the implementation strategy. I think one of the things that we've found is that our platform is so large and stretches across such a continuum that the implementation has to be staged. And I think we like to start with your childcare management systems infrastructure. So the revenue cycle payments, onboarding your teachers, your clock in, your clock out strategy. And then from there, we move to parent engagement. And then from there, we move to training teachers. Then from there, once everything is implemented, those integrations like with Quickbooks, with Childcare CRM, we start to turn those on and test them and assure that there's, do some sanity testing, assure that everything is kind of is presenting in a publishing layer the way it should. So what were the other parts of the question? As far as like justifying expense, one of the secret weapons of one of the things I talked about earlier with software as a service, no longer when I got to med streaming, we would go to our health systems and they would have to pay a down payment of $100,000, $200,000 so that we could come in and implement and specialize the software. Today, Genevieve, I could be wrong. I don't even think we have an implementation fee anymore. We waive that, and you just kind of start paying your monthly software as a service fee, which is really reasonable. So never has there been a better time to make the jump, in my opinion. And then as far as workflows, I want to stop sharing. I want to hand over to Dave because I'd love to kind of show what we're doing. We've always had a great clock in, clock out platform. And as our customers have grown and as we've grown, we've kind of moved into an area of payroll. And I just want Dave to show real quick just like a 2-minute demo of our scheduling time off request platform. And this scheduling platform is built around classrooms. So if you're using Gusto or something like Paychex, imagine taking that to the next level and having it tightly integrated with whatever you use for scheduling, all in the same platform.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Scott. Yeah, and we're really excited to start sharing what we've built over the first quarter and into the early second quarter. So yeah, what you'll see, a little background is, we found that there was an opportunity to further consolidate all of the platforms that a childcare center has to subscribe to or manage and train people on, and simplify your world a little bit more, so that you can get you down to one platform. That's really the goal. One platform that can service you in all the different areas of your business. So what you'll see here is a payroll and a team management platform that's built just for childcare centers. And what we'll show today is the latest from a time management and a staff profiles perspective. So some pretty basics, as you'll see, we have the ability to have a single profile that will exist for your employee or your staff member. Rather than, we're getting you closer to that. Rather than having Sparky Anderson, for example, exist in your payroll system with Gusto, and also in Kangarootime, and also in whatever your HRIS is, we're getting you down to one profile. So that way, all of the information related to Sparky is all in one place, and you can and it makes it a lot simpler and easier to kind of manage that staff member. What you'll see is just some basic personal information, some employee tags, just so you can see what his role is. You can assign him to a role or multiple roles, and also manage his permissions within the software. There's also some interesting things like a medical notes that you need to know, and some internal notes. For instance, maybe you have a internal process for giving feedback and stuff like that. So that's one of the benefits, is that single identity. I think that's huge for us. The next part that we'll quickly run over, and I know I only have a few minutes, so I'll go fast, is some capabilities like employee scheduling and employee time off. So again, bringing all of those aspects into one platform, rather than having to go to multiple platforms to manage these things, you'll be able to manage that here in Kangarootime. So take my audio cut out for a second, but it would give the ability for the childcare center, the staff of the childcare center, to be able to clock in, clock out, also view their schedules and request time off. On the administrative side, you're able to create the schedules, manage them, and then approve time off requests as well. So, without getting too far into it, and I'm sure we'll demo this at another time, we've come a long way to give you a full staff management platform. Which you'll see coming next, that we're working on currently, is the payroll capability. So not only can you manage your clock in, clock out, all of your time management pieces, but also be able to pay your employees and manage the tax forms as well. So we're really excited about this capability. It's come a long way since we started working on it earlier this year, and I don't know, look for the first version to come out within the next several weeks. Is that good enough, Scott? Or I can keep going on this.
No, I'm just going to leave you high and dry. Okay, so other questions. Does the program require iPads, Fire tablets? Okay, so I do have some color on that. So iPads are not necessary. You need tablets, but we've done a lot of work to try to circumvent as much expense as possible. Fire tablets are a tricky one. Yes, they work. We can accommodate the Fire tablets, but the cameras are terrible. The cameras are bad, and a lot of the, what teachers are doing at point of care is capturing great pictures. So we have a couple of Android tablets that we really like. One is the Samsung Tab A 10.1. And I agree, Andy, those Fire tablets, they're so cost efficient. I wish, and you can use them, don't get me wrong, they're great. Yes, yeah, great question. How do you charge for your services? What's the difference between you and Procare? Oh, I love these. Okay, so I think we're kind of like how do I say this? We're the modern version of what Procare. Procare, great company, but they started in the year 2000. Their founder was a revolutionary. But again, if you go back to my presentation and look at the DNA of how software companies are built, what their DNA is, Procare has a long history and a lot of organizational structure to overcome to build really beautiful software, but I think they do a great job. We charge for our services with a monthly fee, starting at $100 per month, and we go up from there depending on the size of your install base. But it's super affordable. And again, if you look at the product mix, we're giving you software that replaces Procare, software that replaces also tadpoles or whatever you're using for classroom automation, whatever you're using for parent communication, whatever you're using for scheduling. So when I work, Sling, anything there. Very soon, when the payroll launch comes, if you're paying for Paychex or Gusto, we will have an offering that should save each and every center across the country money. And it's tightly integrated. It should be less work. So I feel like I'm selling, which is kind of foreign. All right, is there time to see the Kangarootime CRM waitlist option? No, there's not time. But if you send us an email, I will definitely send it back. So send something to info@kangarootime.com. Bring it down to one platform. You're talking my language. Hey, Dave, good to hear from you.
And one thing I just wanted to mention, we did receive a lot of some technical questions that go a little bit deeper than we are in this presentation, just talking about like after school programming and some billing questions. If you do want to take a deeper look at our software, I encourage you to go to our website and schedule a demo with one of our product consultants. It's a free consultation. It takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, just a little bit of time, and they'll walk through your specific case. So any questions that you have, you can ask all of those technical questions. They can walk you through the entire product, what it looks like, how it'll help your center. So I encourage you to do that. There's no strings attached, and just sign up on our website.
Hey, everybody, and great feedback. And we thank you all for joining. Great questions. And I think there's a lot here. So first of all, I see a few questions about our partners. If you have questions about partners, if you have thoughts about us doing other integrations. By the way, on our roadmap, if any of you use cameras, we're going to do an integration with Watch Me Grow. So if a child changes rooms, the parents' camera views change. That's an integration that's super important to us, and definitely on the roadmap. And a lot of what we've built has been direct customer feedback. So really thank all of you for showing up. Genevieve, what do we have coming up?
So we have next month, we're talking about financial planning. So we're going to have some roundtables. We have some great resources from some experts talking about financial planning, especially now during the COVID pandemic, where you might have taken a loss or had lower enrollment. So that's what we'll be talking about for next month.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Hey, everybody, join the KT Childcare Connect group. We love hearing the feedback. I love to see the camaraderie. And in fact, we've had a number of you that struggled with your PPP loans, and I'm seeing you guys help each other, which is such a beautiful thing. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll get an alert if you can't make it.
can't make one of our sessions, you'll get it in an email, which is cool, and you'll get an alert telling you there's new content. And subscribe to the blog, and we love you all. We thank you all so much for being so great and giving such positive and great feedback. And please let us know if there's anything we can do to encourage any of you. But we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.